villains, leaders, champions. Pokémon battles make the world go round, and for that reason, the saga is full of formidable trainers. But what if we had to choose only one? 8 chosen ones for a definitive tournament, with one representative from every cast the saga has shown us. Starting with the first figure we see who welcomes us to this universe, the Professor. Characters who stand out for their erudition and contributions to the knowledge of the Pokémon world, but on some occasions, we have seen them hang up the lab coat and step into battle. Kukui being easily the one who has taken it the furthest. In the games, we are told how, in his youth, he faced champions from other regions on equal footing, using all that experience to create the Alola Pokemon League, giving us at the top, already as champions, a battle that is a full celebration of the Pokemon world and all the life forms that inhabit it. He is the most obvious candidate, but there is someone we cannot forget and who could perhaps spark debate: Professor Oak. The games hint that he was, in his time, an exceptional trainer, perhaps the best of his era, alongside Agatha, with whom he maintained a fierce rivalry. His well-known battle, hidden in the game data, made him a final boss even above the Pokemon League itself, but it ended up in the cartridge's catacombs as beta content, with unfortunately no generation confirming that he still trains. Most likely he is completely devoted to his research, rusty, and would not stand a chance against Alola's dad. There is someone who calls himself Professor, wears a lab coat, and would undoubtedly crush both of them. But I think there is a stricter category for them. The Professor's AI, the Paradise Defense System, is one of the highest battle power ceilings we have seen in this universe. Antagonists are generally formidable trainers, but in this entity, if it can even be considered, one, because this is a complex topic, we would find an inconceivable artificial intelligence with a team made up of the delirious elite of an unreal future and past, fed with information from the best champions in the world, capable of anticipating any situation and being virtually invincible and unstoppable in its obsessive research. How crazy does it have to be for, even with all that, it to still probably be inferior to the pioneer of all this? Indeed, Giovanni remains the greatest threat, light years above the rest of the antagonists. No, we are not talking about the Giovanni we all know running Team Rocket's activities and rapidly gaining influence, only to ultimately be stopped by Red. We are talking precisely about the universe, where the protagonist, for mysterious reasons, did not stop him, taking over Master Ball production and regaining control over Mewtwo. The Team Rainbow Rocket episode implies that this version of Giovanni took control of his world alongside the genetic mutant, the first step to extending his influence across the entire multiverse. No other antagonist, not even the victorious villain versions he recruited from distant universes, comes close to the multi-dimensional power and domination that seems to have only just begun. But even if we take power as something more restricted to the context of battles, there has been no non-playable character with a force comparable to Mega Mewtwo on their team. A being conceived to push the combat gene of pocket monsters to its absolute limit, in its most transcendent and unstoppable form. Alone, it would probably crush all the paradoxes together as if it were nothing. So, at least under the conditions we see in the games, the Paradise Defense Program would not be a rival for him. Of course, the advanced artificial intelligence would foresee that and might look for an alternative plan. The result of a direct confrontation between the two would be quite uncertain, but it has inspired me for a future video, so let's give Giovanni the spot for now. Be that as it may, in the Pokémon universe, no matter how irreversible a situation may seem, there is always hope, embodied in the games, in the protagonist. And as you know, talking about them is not for lack of information, but quite the opposite. As player avatars, they all inherit the player's feats in their drive to complete the game, as if the universe or higher forces conspired to make their progress unstoppable and inevitable. Since all protagonists possess that condition which makes them equal, and except for the dubious case of Red, with protagonists from different generations, there is no official information that places one above another. Perhaps the most accurate thing to say is that they are all equally strong, as they are all vessels of the player's spirit, shining more or less depending on that player's determination and the challenges they face. But if we have to choose someone symbolically, we can only decide who has the greatest feat behind them. With strong competition, Ray and Akari from Legends Arceus have the Sky won. Literally, they not only face the creation trio in their original, unrestricted versions that their descendants don't even know, including a hand-to-hand combat component to pacify them, they also came face-to-face with the alpha Pokémon, Arceus. Let's ignore recent leaks so, we can get over the trauma as soon as possible. A mysterious being directly related to the creation of the universe that ultimately joins forces with the protagonist as an essential entity that a priori has always placed them above all Pokémon in terms of power, at least until Terapagos arrived, which, while seemingly insignificant in comparison, is the only Pokémon that has hinted at abilities over the fabric of reality beyond even those of Arceus. And no one has banned it yet. I still believe that the mainline protagonists are, in essence, the same. And if you swapped their stories, they would all have achieved the other's feats in the same way. But the Legends protagonists face mechanics and structures so different that they might be the exception, and the only ones who could do it. Reason why they would be chosen by the alpha Pokémon. A more mundane category is that of the gym leader, for which, as we have seen before, Raihan had been accumulating merits. Apparently, his strength isn't even limited to Pokémon, but among them, he has the not insignificant achievement of having spent years pushing the #1 of the world battle circuit, Leon. In Pokémon Sword and Shield, we are told outright that since Leon became champion, no one has come so close to defeating him. Until a certain Scottish kid appeared. Apparently, every year they reach the finals, and the result is closer, becoming an increasingly tight rivalry with each edition, all based on work, study, and increasingly sophisticated strategies with which this character compensates for the difference in natural talent. We know that gym leaders are far more powerful than what they show in their limited badge battles, but it's hard to believe that any other would enter that range, except Iris, the dragon-type prodigy, much more brute and inexperienced, but presumably also more talented in her innate connection with Pokémon. In her definitive version in Black 2 and White 2, I think it would be a very even clash. Perhaps Iris would even have the edge. But remember, we're talking about leaders, not ex-leaders. And Iris, as a gym leader in Black and White, is still barely a beginner, progressing at a devilishly fast pace. But a novice, nonetheless. Her grandfather Drayden was on par with her at that time. Since we're talking about dragon leaders, Claire could have entered the conversation, as we are told in Generation 2 that not even her region's Elite Four would stand a chance against her. But times are tough. Her inferiority to Lance is made quite clear, who again would see Raihan as at least an equal. Lance himself is not the strongest contender among the champions, but he would at least take the consolation prize of being the best Elite Four member, a position he occupies during the brief period when Blue remained champion. only to be defeated by Red, who would then give the position back to Lance. An incredible mess. Lance's Elite Four team is the weakest we've ever seen him use, so despite everything, I'm not entirely convinced that no other champion from another region couldn't take the title from him. For example, Lucian, who is canonically one of the most intelligent characters in the Pokémon world, to the point where his intellect begins to be confused with psychic powers and a certain clairvoyance. Applied in a world tournament with sufficient preparation time, that could mean a lot. I even get the feeling that Drayden could be a more fearsome dragon type than Lance himself, but unfortunately the games tell us too little about him to confirm it. Watching this video, I'm realizing how much we need a game that puts these kinds of characters against each other and gives us answers. All things considered, excluding the protagonists who muddy any discussion, Leon would probably win a World Tournament of Champions, something that, unfortunately, has never happened in the video games beyond the Pokémon World Tournament. But trust me, it's better not to take what happens there too seriously. Each generation functions very independently, and there's no doubt that those champion battles are almost always going to be an even and fierce clash. I said almost. It is also true that no region has hyped its spearhead like Galar. The game really insists that Leon is a generational talent, a rung above the champions we had seen before. Galar is definitely the most try-hard region with the fiercest competition, and maintaining such an immaculate dynasty for so long is no small feat. He is also the only champion to date who has directly faced the threat plaguing his region, the infamous Eternatus, who, when its new power was unleashed, naturally ended up completely overwhelming him. But taking into account how close that battle was and how confident Rose was that the situation was under control, it seems he wasn't that far from being able to face it alone in its first form. In fact, there is someone who rubbed shoulders with a force of nature of similar magnitude, who could be considered a champion and would rank quite a bit higher. The most powerful rival of all time is, of course, N. It can't be said that he lacked competition for the position, including several elite champion-level characters, but N is defensibly the non-playable character who has come closest to the protagonist archetype. In his journey to convince the world of his ideal, he defeated every trainer in Unova, using only Pokémon found on nearby routes, without training them and releasing them when changing routes. He is so close to the player figure that if this game had released today, I'd think it was a parody of Nuzlocke, Hardlocks, and similar challenges. He crushed the champion and was chosen as the standard bearer of the legendary, like a true protagonist. Of course, in this game there were two central pieces, and the other hero decided to side with the player, who, after a fierce struggle, would ultimately prevail. But the game implies that his defeat was not a matter of strength or trainer skill, which were extremely even, but that due to the events of the game, he doubted his convictions. Something the champion of truth never did. That doubt ended up being understood by him as a miracle, the formula to change the world by combining viewpoints. So, in his own way, the defeat was a victory. The anime where things have changed quite a bit lately. In the past, Cynthia and Tobias were names that often came up in discussions of the strongest. Pokémon Journeys would clarify things by placing Leon at the top above all of them, and Ash managing to defeat him would close the circle. But recently, in Pokémon Horizons, a mysterious appearance has made all of them seem insignificant. Lucius, the legendary spectral adventurer, is a hero who traveled the world 100 years ago, possessing perhaps the highest power ceiling of any trainer. With a team including no less than Entei, Galarian Moltres, and hold on, a shiny Rayquaza from the ancient Pokeball of Rhoda, and Terapagos from the pendant of Laqua. I think there's very little debate that the final spot in our tournament should be his, unless leaks suddenly come out accusing him of something that forces us to ban him. What was the mysterious Enigma Berry? Are there secret dialogues you can only discover after more than 475 battles at the Battle Frontier? You can see all these curiosities in the video we previously uploaded to the channel.